Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, June 19th. Hopefully everybody is having a good day so far today. We have hit the middle part of June. This is episode 317 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. If you live in the New Jersey tri-state area, the weather this week has been brutal as we hit the kind of dog days of June, getting closer and closer to July. As each passing day goes by, we get closer to getting out of this dead time in the NFL and getting closer to the start of training camp, which will start up here in about a month from now. But today I did want to get into a topic that has been discussed a little bit over the last couple weeks among the Jets fan base and really kind of a little bit throughout the NFL as well, with some of the contract situations that the New York Jets are dealing with. I wanted to take a little bit of a deep dive, a little bit of a look into potentially the decision that the New York Jets could make between two cornerbacks in Michael Carter II and DJ Reed, both of which enter the final year of their deal. For Carter, it's the final year of that rookie deal. For DJ Reed, it's the final year of the contract that he signed back in 2022. So I wanted to break it down, which avenue the New York Jets could go down, which avenue might be best for the New York Jets, which I think what I think they could do, what I think they will do, and break down what the New York Jets ultimately could come to an agreement with both of these players, what each contract could look like, and take a little bit of a deeper dive into this, because it's a story not only this offseason, but something that'll certainly hang over the Jets' head during the regular season if they don't get something done here over the next couple weeks into training camp. Now, before we begin, you could see the hat I'm wearing. We are sponsored by Huga House. And I want you all to go down in the description down below. Click the link in the description down below. It'll send you to the Huga House website. And when you find something you like, I want to use promo code BUBBS, BUBBS, promo code BUBBS for 15% off any purchase at Huga House. You want to get the hat that I'm wearing right now, or any of the hats that you have seen Aaron Rodgers wear over the last couple years, definitely, or more so, I should say, over the last couple months. Definitely head on down in the description down below. Head on over to Huga House. Use promo code BUBBS for 15% off any purchase, and get yourself some swag, get yourself a discount, help support the channel, support Huga House, and get yourself some swag, as I mentioned, as well. So wanted to open up by saying that. Really proud and happy to sponsor with them here on the podcast. Now, let's break down the New York Jets contract situation that they find themselves in. So where the New York Jets are right now from a team perspective, it's very interesting, because after this year and even going into this year, they've got a lot of contract situations that are hanging over their head. You've got the Hassan Reddick contract situation that right now is on the forefront, where he's holding out. He doesn't want to play under no guaranteed money. He wants a restructured deal. He wants, whether it's a 1-2 year extension that the New York Jets could potentially give him, to have guaranteed money this year, which you totally understand why he is holding out, because I'm sure many of you, if you were in Hassan Reddick's situation, you wouldn't want to play with no guaranteed money, with the risk of injury and having this year completely blow up in your face. So you can understand the perspective from Hassan Reddick. So you've got that hanging over your head. And on top of that, a big storyline over the last couple of weeks has been having to pay this 2022 draft class, which is something that the New York Jets will most likely address next offseason. But there are two guys right now that could see extensions come during training camp before the season starts, and that is Michael Carter II and DJ Reed. And where the New York Jets currently stand right now, this is why winning right now, winning this season, ideally is the best case scenario, because you still have all of these guys on their rookie deals. You still have a lot of these guys on the first contract that they signed with the team, whether it was DJ Reed's contract in 2022 or, of course, Michael Carter's contract after he was drafted in 2021, because you're going to have Sauce Gardner looking for a new deal. You're going to have Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, all those guys, that core four, that 2022 draft class, eventually looking for new deals. You can't give all of these guys the money. You can't give all these guys the bag, especially when it comes to a cornerback perspective, where all three cornerbacks are going to be looking for money at the end of this season. Potentially, you can get a deal done before the season even begins if the Jets are proactive, which I think is the best case scenario. And that's between Michael Carter II and DJ Reed, because if you extend Sauce Gardner, which is 100% happening at the end of this season, they're going to give Sauce Gardner a massive contract. They're going to make him the highest paid corner in football. They're going to give him more money than what Jair Alexander is making right now, who is currently the highest. He is going to completely open up the market. He is going to recreate the market. That's 100% happening. But the other two guys, it's going to be tough to keep Michael Carter II and DJ Reed. Now, Michael Carter II was a 2021 draft pick, as we know, 5th round pick, 154th overall out of Duke. Of course, free agent after this year. As for DJ Reed, he was a 2022 free agent signing. He signed a 3-year deal, $33 million, $11 million AAV in 2022. And as we all know, he will hit the open market this offseason. And we've criticized Douglas a ton for having DJ, for all the issues he's had from a free agency perspective. We've crushed him for years. For years, really. I would say for years. Because he's had some terrible free agent signings. But you can make a good case that DJ Reed has been his best free agent signing back in 2022. This was a guy that spent 4 years, 2 in first 4 years of his career, 2 in San Francisco under Saleh, then 2 in Seattle, reunited with Saleh in 2022, and has had 2 career seasons in back-to-back years. You know, he was solid his first 4 years, but nothing like what he's become in these 2 years with the New York Jets, where he has become a top 15, top 20, borderline top 10 cornerback in the NFL, and a guy that is going to look for potential cornerback number 1 money come 2025 and even maybe this season as well. So let's break down kind of both sides of this, because there is kind of 2 perspectives of how you want to break it down. If you look at the Michael Carter route, now, actually, before we get to that, one more thing. When you look at this overall cornerback unit, it's been one of the best in football. And that's what stings about this situation, is the possibility of one of these guys not being here long-term, whether that's DJ Reed, whether that's Michael Carter, because of the fact that they're all 3 so good together, and you wish you could keep all of them, but it's going to be very, very difficult. This is a unit that's had a PFF grade of 91.5 the last 2 seasons. That's first in the NFL over that time. It's also a cornerback unit that's had a coverage grade of 92.7. That's first in the NFL over the last 2 seasons as well. So you look at the numbers, you watch these guys play. I know PFF isn't the end all be all. Some of their stuff, is questionable. I understand that, but not even just the PFF numbers. You just look at what these guys do on the field. You don't even have to look at the numbers. You watch them play. They are so dominant. And also, PFF also released their cornerback rankings a little bit ago. And Sauce was number 1. Michael Carter was 9. DJ Reed was 14. So they had 3 corners in the top 15. So you wish you could keep all these guys together, but it's going to be tough. Now, you look at the Michael Carter route, and I think that's probably, kind of to open up, I think that's probably the route that the New York Jets will end up going down. I think they will end up extending, bringing back, re-signing Michael Carter II over DJ Reed. I wish they could keep all of them. I mentioned that so many times already in this episode. I mentioned it in previous episodes. I wish they could keep all 3 of these guys. But I think if you're going to extend one guy, I think if Joe Douglas had to make a decision on DJ Reed or Michael Carter, it's going to be Michael Carter for a couple reasons. And this could be a deal too, that ideally maybe you get it done in training camp and you avoid what happened last year and in previous years with some of your homegrown talent and Bryce Huff. They could have extended Bryce Huff 2 years ago. They could have extended Bryce Huff last year. They were kind of lazy. They kind of waited it out. Bryce Huff bet on himself, had a huge season, and they lost him, as we know, to the Philadelphia Eagles. You don't want that same thing now to happen to Michael Carter, where you're kind of a little bit lazy, letting it play out. And then all of a sudden he gets a massive contract from somebody else next year. And now you lose a guy that you brought in as a 5th-round pick, developed him, homegrown talent. You don't want that. So ideally, you try and get the deal done here in training camp. Now, Rich Cimini on his Flight Deck podcast a couple days ago mentioned that there hasn't been much negotiations between the Jets and DJ Reed and the Jets and Michael Carter. So it seems like a situation that isn't really going to develop much, but you never know. Camp comes, we'll see what happens if there's a different feeling between the two sides. But from the Michael Carter perspective, look, he's younger. You know, this is a guy that is 25 years old. He'll be 26 next offseason when he hits the free agent market if the Jets don't get something done. As I've talked about, he's a homegrown guy. 2021 5th-round pick. Wasn't expected to do a whole lot coming out of Duke. Came in here, Jets developed him. Credit to Jeff Ulbrich. Credit to Tony Oden. Credit to all of those guys, Jeff Ulbrich, Robert Saleh, for all of them, for developing Michael Carter into one of the premier slot corners in the NFL. Will throw up some of his numbers. These were his numbers last year among slot cornerbacks. He was first in total yards allowed, 195. First in total receptions allowed, 25. First in yards per snap, 0.54. First in snaps per reception, 14.4. First in PFF coverage grade, 83.3. First in penalties allowed. He had 1 penalty last year, which we know the importance for a Jets team that was heavily penalized last year, more so on offense, not really defense. But there was some undisciplined things up front on defense. This is a guy that doesn't take many penalties. He was first in all 6 of these statistical categories among slot corners. So legitimately, he's a top 3, number 1, arguably the best slot corner in the NFL, the best nickel in the NFL. You watch him play, you look at the numbers, both of those support that assumption. And not only is he younger, not only do you look at the numbers and they fly off the page, he's also a homegrown talent. You could see Douglas wanting to keep one of his guys. But from a nickel perspective, for what he's going to look to get is probably going to be cheaper than what DJ Reed could potentially get. You look at the highest paid nickel cornerbacks in the NFL right now. The top 2 are Teron Johnson of the Bills, who just signed a 3-year, $10.25 million contract. I apologize, 3-year, $10.25 AAV contract about a month or 2 ago. Before that, it was Kenny Moore of the Colts. He is number 2, 3-year, $10 million. So Teron Johnson's slightly higher paid than Kenny Moore. You could see Michael Carter having 11, 12 million potentially AAV, which would be cheaper from what potentially DJ Reed could be looking at. Because from a DJ Reed perspective, you're looking at a guy that is not really, this is a guy that's, again, the age is a big thing because he's going to be 28 by the time free agency hits. He's going to be looking, this potentially could be his last big payday, his last big free agency for him to strike a long-term deal with a team. And you can look across the NFL. There are a lot of teams that if you told them, hey, you can get DJ Reed as your number 1 cornerback, probably 60 to 70% of NFL teams. I mean, let's be honest here, right? He's the 14th best corner. According to PFF, they ranked him as the 14th best corner in the NFL. There's 32 NFL teams. So probably about 80%, I'm not a great math guy, but probably about 80% of NFL teams, if you gave them DJ Reed right now, he would slot in as their number 1 corner. And maybe that's too much of a number. Again, I'd have to look at every single roster, look at every single number 1 cornerback on every single roster. But, I'll tell you what, at least 60, 70, maybe 80. I don't know. Again, you'd have to take more of a deep dive into that. But DJ Reed, you feel like a little bit in the back of his mind might be like, you know what? This is my last big payday. I want to cash in. I want to go and get number 1 cornerback money, which the Jets won't be able to give him because they're going to give it to Sauce. And if they're going to give it to Michael Carter, they're going to throw him the highest paid nickel cornerback money in the NFL as well. I don't think you're going to be able to give DJ Reed that much money, nor is DJ Reed going to want to get paid potentially like a number 2 cornerback. I think he's going to want to go around and see, hey, I'm 28. This is my last big payday. Let me see if I could strike on a 3-4 year deal that gets me paid like a number 1 cornerback. And I can close out my career that way. Because You can get Michael Carter too, and I think that's why the Jets are going to favor Michael Carter in this because he's younger. But you can get Michael Carter for his age 26, 27, 28 season, let's say, if you sign him to a 3-year deal. If you give DJ Reed a 3-year deal, you're looking at 29, 30, 31 into his 30s. He's 2-3 years older than Michael Carter. And I'm not saying that like I would love all three of them back. This is kind of just me, what I think the Jets mindset is going to be on all of this. And also DJ Reed's mindset too. He's going to want a big payday, especially if this year he dominates. And ideally, like I said, it doesn't seem like something's going to get done. History tells us something won't get done with the way last year and really the last 2 seasons were handled with Bryce Huff. But best case scenario, you get one of these guys knocked down in training camp. Maybe you extend Michael Carter in training camp. All right, you get a deal done there. Maybe a little bit cheaper than if you would to wait at the end of the season where he continues to up his value. All right, you get a deal done with Michael Carter, and then next offseason, you extend Sauce, but maybe you give yourself more breathing room for a DJ Reed extension as opposed to having both these guys hit free agency at the same time. So we'll see what the Jets' mindset is, their thought process. You look at DJ Reed's numbers, his 2 years with the New York Jets, 156 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 21 passes defended. A guy that has been one of the most underrated players on the team, one of the most underrated players in the NFL from a cornerback perspective. And DJ Reed actually spoke last week at mandatory minicamp on his future with the Jets, kind of implying that the Jets, that the decision is in the Jets' court. The ball's in the Jets' court. But he was definitely open to returning, and it definitely seems like he really likes it here. Here's a clip of DJ Reed commenting on his future and a potential contract extension with New York.
Do you have any talk, DJ, at all about with the Jets this offseason about potentially getting a new contract, anything like that?
Connor gonna ask them questions. You gonna ask them questions. No, man, it's just been chill vibes. So, I signed a 3-year deal, so, I expect to play 3 years here and go into free agency. So, yeah, but, I do love New York. I love playing here. Love the coaches, love the organization. Woody took care of me last time. And yeah, I love my teammates, so we'll see.
So it kind of seems like no discussions between the two there. Kind of implying, like I mentioned before, I played the clip, that kind of comes to the Jets. He's focused on the field. He's ready for the season. Whatever Joe Douglas wants, whatever, Woody Johnson, those people decide from where he wants to put his pockets, put his money towards, they'll make that decision. But I think at the end of the day, long term, and I think if there would be a contract that's going to get done like during camp, I think it's probably going to be Michael Carter. I think the Jets are going to favor the youth. I think they're going to look at the contract and probably say it might be cheaper than what DJ Reed might get. I also think, too, the Jets, the way that they're currently constructing this roster, the way they look at their cornerback core, if you have Michael Carter, you have Sauce Gardner, 2 young guys, you can kind of be okay with a third guy in a way being your, you can kind of, I don't want to say get away with another, your third piece struggling, but like you don't need 3 dominant corners. Like the Jets can have a 1-2 punch in Michael Carter. And this, I'm saying like the same argument to be made about DJ Reed. And that's why I think they're going to have to, they'll probably choose between one or the other, because the way the Jets have done things is, you got to trust Jeff Ulbrich. You got to trust Robert Saleh. They've been able to develop a lot of really good players. And you have Quantez Stiggers back there, who maybe is a diamond in the rough. You have Brandon Echols. You have some of those pieces already there in place that maybe the Jets continue to develop, and maybe they take over as a cheaper option next year or in the future. But it's definitely an interesting thing, and it's something that'll obviously be talked about a lot during camp, obviously be discussed a lot during the season. But something to keep an eye on, because the Jets are entering a very pivotal stretch in their franchise where they've got a lot of really big pieces up for new contracts. These aren't the only 2 players. I already talked about the core 4. I already talked about that 2022 draft class. Now, not all of them are going to get extended next season, but, in the upcoming years, they're going to look to get extended, and you want to save some money for those guys. You also have to put into account that you're already paying Quinnen Williams a lot of money. And even, like a Quincy Williams, for example, that's a cheaper contract. That's what I think best case scenario. Maybe he gets at the end of Michael Carter where you can get him a little bit more on a bargain, cheaper than if he plays out this year, plays well, and then wants even more money. But I think the Jets at the end of the day will probably take the youth and take Michael Carter over DJ Reed. And maybe knock one of these out during camp. But ideally, all three guys are here for long term, right? I mean, Sauce is. Sauce will get his money. He's going to get paid very well in the offseason. But one of these guys is going to get paid. I feel like the other might move on somewhere else. And it feels like it might be DJ Reed. But you still have a full season. He mentioned it. You still have all of this year. He mentioned how he's here to play 3 seasons. He's going to play all 3 years. You cross that bridge when you get there. But it's a decision that's going to loom, and maybe a decision that the New York Jets could potentially make during camp, as I said, where you can knock one of these guys out and then only have one to focus on next offseason as opposed to both hitting free agency. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments section down below, what are your thoughts on the Michael Carter, DJ Reed contract situation? And as I mentioned earlier, head on down and link in the description down below. Use promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase at Huga House. The hat I'm repping right now, or any of the hats that you see Aaron Rodgers wearing often, you can get some of those. Help support the channel, help support Huga House, and get yourself some swag. So use promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase at Huga House. They also sell t-shirts as well. So definitely check that out. Appreciate all the support. We'll have a lot more content coming your way. And as always, hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.